This is the patron of the Yarra Valley Open Studios when they started at post-fires after 2009. Well, Open Studios in Dandenong, in the Dandenong Ranges, has been going for 13 years, and they're heading into their 13th experience of it this coming weekend, around, appropriately called the 2016 Dandenong Open Studios, and an artist who has been a part of that for the last 8 years, Tracey Roberts, is sitting opposite me tonight. Tracey, hello to you. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Hi.
It's what made you want to get involved with these in the first place?
I actually went to a couple of Open Studios events before I joined up myself and thought, I want to do this. This looks really cool. You get to meet some really great people who are very interested in what you're doing.
Yes.
And you get to articulate your work, which is amazing, actually. You start to really understand what it is you're doing, and it's great to talk to people. They'll ask you all sorts of questions which inspire you to do other things, and you meet other artists, which is a fantastic thing, particularly for a lot of artists up in the hills who are fairly insular or, focused on what they're doing. And
lots of artists are like that. Yeah, you don't get a chance so much unless, particularly if you're in an area that's as beautiful as the Dandenong.
Well, that's right.
Dragging yourself into the city when you have to.
Yeah, exactly. I'm lucky because I'm a musician in the sense that I get out a bit anyway.
Yeah.
So that wasn't really my situation. But I have really loved getting to know lots of other visual artists and artists that work in other media as well.
The music is very much a part of the art that you do, isn't it? Explain how that works.
Sure. Well, I have music colour synesthesia, which means that I see shapes and colours and textures when I hear and listen and play music.
Like just listening to Marvin Gaye there, I said to you, are you seeing colours and movement? And you said, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Moving through your brain.
Third eye stuff. It's kind of hard to explain. It's a little bit like daydreaming, when you kind of visualise things inside your head, but you're still carrying on your normal day-to-day activities. It doesn't create issues like having, car accidents at traffic lights or anything like that.
Right, yes. It's kind of in the background?
Yeah, kind of.
Can you bring it to the foreground if you wanted to?
I can if I focus on it. Usually, if I really want to focus on it, I'll need to close my eyes, but it's always there. It's a bit like breathing. You don't think about it.
Well, I suppose if that's been part of your whole life, if it suddenly happened to me, I think I would probably notice it straight away. What colours and shapes did you see listening to Marvin Gaye then?
Well, there were a lot of yellows and white sort of fuzzy balls flying around, and some, dark crimson beats going down to the bottom end, bass notes, and some white fuzzy vertical lines happening with the drum beats.
Do they move in time with the actual beat, or do they
sometimes they move. Sometimes they're just all flying around, and it's really tricky to explain it, But that's one of the reasons I love the artwork, because a lot of that is produced through trying to actually express what's going on inside my head.
So when you're doing that, are you listening to music or making music or listening to music that you've made in order to put something onto canvas? How are you depicting it?
Well, I'll sit down, I'll listen to music and get inspired with a piece, and then I don't need to be listening to music because there's music in my head all the time, always. And I just don't even realise it half the time until I'm sort of thinking, oh, that song's happening, oh, that's because of this, or whatever. It's amazing how it's related to day-to-day activities. It's a bit like dreaming in the sense that, you're always listening and processing, but I do it in a very musical and colourful way. I produce line drawings, sketches, pencil drawings, very organic basis for me, ink it in, and then I scan it and thereafter digitally colour and embellish my work. And the reason I do that is because I don't even know how I could get the colours that are in my head out of a tube of paint. So I use technology to actually create those surprising, wonderful, moments of, I had these epiphanies really going, that's it, play with saturations and filters and colours. And
that's fascinating. So when you say technology, okay, so I'm trying to think of the process here. So do you start with paints at all?
No, I don't use paint. I tried painting, didn't like it.
Right.
Paint's too long to dry, or it dries too dark. It's too messy.
Not what you're after.
Not my thing. I might try it one day, but at the moment I like drawing. I've always drawn in black and white.
Yes.
Ever since I was a kid. Colour used to confuse me, actually.
But the colour that you now have in your work is so individual. It's so rich.
Yeah, it's really saturated.
It is really saturated. Yeah. And where does that come from? A paint box that you use that's on your computer, or how does that work?
Well, I will colour things based on the colours that are associated with, say, for example, certain musical instruments. A cello is always red, a flute's always going to be a silvery blue colour, If I hear, double bass, it's always going to be a velvety brown. And depending on the piece of art that I produce, which is not always around a musical instrument, it can be some other musically related thing, I'll bring in the colours that are intuitively feeling right, that sits with that subject matter. And if it's associated with a piece of music, then the music will determine the colours that produce the piece of artwork.
And where do you bring them in from?
It's all Photoshop.
It is Photoshop.
Good old Photoshop, yep. Marvellous, wonderful piece of technology.
It is, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I'm still learning about what I can do with it, but it's such a wonderful process of discovery for me as well. So I really love the results that I get.
Do you print it off? Is that what you do?
Yeah, they do. In the end, they get printed. I get all my work printed at Magnet in the city, and it's a fantastic, archive quality fine art paper that it gets printed on.
Yes.
And really beautiful, rich RGB colours,
So the colours that you see on the screen when you go, that's the finished product. You get that exact replica onto the paper.
Yeah, it took me a while to find the right people to do that, but I found them and I won't go anywhere else because what I see on the screen is what I get, and particularly the reds. I had so much trouble with getting the reds happening until I found this mob, and then, the reds they're critical for me. Reds are very powerful.
Well, I'm just looking at some examples of the work. The reds are completely stunning. So whoever you've got to do it for you, I almost feel like, they need to have their name kind of underneath as well because it is just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Tell me of the space where people go into if they go and visit you, Tracey. Tell me the space the artwork is created in.
I live in a geodesic dome inside, in a dome in the forest, in the hills, and I produce a lot of my work there. But I can also just as easily be sitting in a cafe somewhere and listening to music and go, what a great idea for a piece of art.
And you start sketching something. So you take a sketchbook with you most of the time?
Yes.
You're not doing it on serviette?
Sometimes.
How many pieces have you made over the years, do you think?
Look, in this sort of work, with this colour work, there's probably about 120, 130 at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a stack of them sitting in my head waiting to come through.
The synesthesia fascinates me, and a few people are texting about it as well, saying, when did it first manifest itself? Do you get officially diagnosed, or did you look up a set of symptoms and decide that that's what you had? Tell us
the diagnosis is a really interesting word too. I don't actually see it as being anything that's...
No, it's not an issue.
No, it's not an issue. For me, it's just as natural and easy as breathing, But it was a bit of an epiphany moment for me when I went to the museum, actually. I was thinking about what you were saying before about those little moments that change your life.
Yes.
It was when I discovered the word synesthesia, actually. And as soon as that happened, I was able to explore it and realise that, wow, this is actually a thing. It's not just me and the way I think. And I've never actually thought about it. That's the other really weird thing about synesthesia, is nobody really talks about it. It's no big deal. It's just the way we think and the way we operate. But to find out about it was really exciting. And then it was wonderful for me because it started to marry the music that I'd always been doing and focusing on as my career with the artwork that was always a little bit confusing for me. I never really quite knew what to do with colour. Mm-hmm. It was always black and white. And then all of a sudden there was this blinding flash of the obvious where the two things came together. And so now my practice is very cohesive instead of being two separate streams. The art and the music is connected through.
It must have been a lovely moment for you.
It was. It was probably a life-changing moment for me, actually.
Bringing two strands coming together.
Yeah, it's great. And it's been lovely to actually be part of Open Studios every year to explain that to people and bring that, out to show people. And
people are sending some texts in saying, can I see this online? I do know you do have a website.
I do. My website is traceyroberts.com. And it's also yourstoryinart.com. That's another line of work that I do, which is about producing people's stories in artwork. And I use synesthesia to produce their artworks as well. So Your Story in Art has got a whole lot of information about how I can portray somebody else's story in a piece of artwork. But most of the body of my work is musically themed artworks, and that can all be seen on traceyroberts.com.
And it's Tracey with an E, by the way. Yeah, that's lovely.
It is. And then, of course, all the Open Studios artists, you can find out everything about Open Studios, including coming to my studio on the weekend at openstudios.org.au.
It's a beautiful brochure, as always. And just looking at some of the work that's there, it's just, it's gorgeous. a lovely thing to do. You get to go to a lovely part of the world, and as a result, you get to meet people like Tracey and many others like her, and just see where all this art is made. And have some conversations about it too.
There's a beautiful group exhibition too that I'd like to mention, if I may.
Sure.
All of the artists put together a piece of work that is associated with a theme that we all come up with every year. And this year's theme is micro macro, and that's being held at the Burrinja Gallery in Upwey at the moment, and that's on until the 24th of April. And basically on the weekend or even now, you can go to that gallery and see an interpretation of every artist involved in this program of the theme, micro macro, and you can get a sense of what they do and be inspired. You know, you might want to go and visit a textile artist or a potter or a painter or a wood turner or, you know.
Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that you all get in the same sort of theme, and it's dependent upon the way in which you want to interpret that. It gives you a sense of what people are doing. Great.
Oh, it's a beautiful interpretation. Really, really gorgeous.
Nice to meet you, Tracey.
Thank you, Lindy.
Congratulations on the work that you're doing. I love the fact that you've taken an aspect of your life and made it an incredible, a personal connection to the art that you make. Most people do, but for you it just seems even more connected in some ways.
I'm pretty stoked to found out the word, I've got to say.
Tracey Roberts, a part of Dandenong Open Studios, Dandenong Burrinja Open Studios this coming weekend. Go to their website, which is openstudios.org.au, or you can go to Tracey's website itself, which is Tracey Roberts with an E.com. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you. You too.